Assalamu alaikum. Returning back to our discussion of how to develop Baseerah, or insight. Let's look at another characteristic of what makes someone a person of insight. Look at how Allah describes people who have insight. He says at the end of verse 3:13, so chapter 3, verse 13, he says, "Inna fi dhalika la'ibratan li'ulil absar." In that is an ibrah, translated as a lesson. Sometimes they translate ibrah as a lesson. We're going to discuss this word in detail today. In that is an ibrah li ulil absar, for those who possess absar, for those who possess vision, insight. Another verse that connects the word ibrah with absar is in chapter 59. So if we go to chapter 59, Surah Al-Hashr, verse 59, 2. So verse 2, he says, at the end of it, he says, فَاعْتَبِرُوا يَا أُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ فَاعْتَبِرُوا يَا أُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ. So he uses the term i'tabiru, which is from the same root as the word ibrah. So ibrah comes from the three-letter root ayn, ba, and ra. And i'tabiru comes from that same root. It just adds, it's an increased form of the verb. So it's from the ifta'ala pattern. So it's telling you i'tabiru, meaning take the lesson. Okay, so ibrah is the lesson. I'tabiru is take the lesson. So here he says, fa'tabiru ya ulil absar. So take the ibrah, take the lesson, O people, or all those who possess vision or insight. So what does this word mean? In two places he connects it with ulil absar, those who possess vision. So if we want to understand what it means to possess vision or insight, we need to understand the word ibrah. So let me scroll down in my notes a little bit, and we'll go to some verses about the word ibrah. But first I want to say, Al-Raghib al-Asfahani, a very important scholar who did a lot of work in defining the terms of the Qur'an, the Quranic vocabulary. He explains the root of this word. He says, Aslul abr tajawuz, at-tajawuz min halin ila hal. It means to go beyond one state or situation to another state. So abara basically means to pass from one thing to the next. And that's why in the Quran we see, for example, the term used, abiru sabil, abiri sabil, the one who's passing along the path, right? But if we look at some of the verses that specifically use the term ibrah, it's very beautiful, subhanAllah, how the Quran explains itself. So if we go to chapter 12, we'll go to verse 43. He says, this very beautiful explanation here in chapter 12, verse 43. وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ إِنِّي أَرَى سَبْعَ بَقَرَاتٍ سِمَانٍ يَأْكُلُهُنَّ سَبْعٌ عِجَافٍ. The king said, truly I see. Look at the language of vision, right? Pay attention, because the ibrah is for ulil absar, those who have insight. And look what the king says, Inni ara, I see. Sab'a baqaratin simanin, 7 fat cows, ya'kuluhunna sab'un ijaf, being devoured by 7 lean cows. Wa sab'a sumbulatin khudrin wa ukhara yabisat, and 7 green ears and others that are dry. Ya ayyuhal mala'u aftuni fi ru'yaya. O my counsel, give me the explanation or the verdict about my vision. Look at the language of vision. In kuntum lirru'ya, if you are for visions, ta'burun. So the word ta'burun, so what they usually interpret it here, they say, if you have the ability to interpret visions or something to that effect. But the word that they usually translate as interpret here, ta'burun, is from the same root, abara, as ibrah, and fa'tabiru, that's used with ulil absar. So here, this is, subhanAllah, this is a very beautiful foundational verse to define the word ibrah. Because what's being talked about here? The king is talking about a vision, a dream he's having. And in the dream, he's seeing 7 fat cows being devoured by 7 lean ones, and 7 green ears being devoured by, not being devoured, and others that are dry. 7 green ears and others that are dry, right? So he's asking them, Tell me about this dream. Tell me what this dream means. If you ta'burun, if you can pass, because remember the root meaning of the word abara is to pass. So if you have the ability to pass from the symbolic meaning of this dream, from the symbolism, because the cows, for example, and the ears symbolize something, right? He realizes that they symbolize something. They mean something. They're not just to be taken literally as the dream is just talking about cows, like some cows are going to eat each other. No, there's a meaning behind this. So he says what he wants them to do, his mala, his counsel, what he wants them to do is ta'burun. He wants them to, yes, you could say interpret, but what kind of interpretation? To pass, because remember the root meaning is to pass. So to pass from the symbol to the actual meaning behind it, right? To pass from the symbol, which is the cow and the ear, to pass from that to the lesson behind it. Okay, so that's what ibra basically is. That's what it means to take a lesson. It means you don't stay stuck on on the literal version of something, or on just what you see, or the physical version of something, or what's apparent to you about something. You go beyond that. You pass beyond that to the deeper lesson behind it. Follow what I'm saying? Now, if you look, what makes this really beautiful is if you look in the end of the surah of Yusuf, right? In the very last verse, in verse 111, he says, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. He says, truly in their stories, and whose stories? The stories of the messengers. Because in the verse right before it, he references the messengers. He says, حَتَّى إِذَا اسْتَيْأَسَ الرُّسُلُ. He references the messengers. So he says, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. For people of intellect. In their stories is a lesson for people of intellect. So look at that, subhanAllah, I used the same word in the surah that earlier was talked about, or was used in the context of interpreting symbolism in a dream. He said in the stories of the messengers, he used the same word. There is an ibrah, there is a lesson, right? So what does that tell you? That the messengers are symbolic, right? So when you read the story of Musa, Musa symbolizes something. That's how you take the ibrah. It's not about, there's all these debates about the messengers, was Jesus actually a real person? Was Moses a real person? All these different things. That's not the point. Musa in the Qur'an is a symbol for something, for certain qualities. Yunus is a symbol for certain qualities. Yusuf is a symbol for certain qualities. That's the meaning of the word ibra. You can see it from the story of Yusuf itself. Al-Qur'anu yufassiru ba'duhu ba'da. The Qur'an explains itself. So in the verses where he talks about ibra for ulil absar, right? Inna fi dhalika la'ibratan li ulil absar. That in that is an ibrah, is a lesson for people who have vision. That tells us something very important about what it means to develop insight and vision. True vision, true insight is not to get stuck on the surface, not to get stuck on the apparent, not to get stuck on the literal. It's to take the ibrah, it's to pass beyond the surface, to go beyond the surface, and to see the deeper lessons behind that, to decode the symbolism. And that's one of the meanings of what it means to have insight. Salamun alaikum.